So in this video we're going to have a play with multiple sprites. I'm going to add some cheese for our mouse, multiple cheese in fact. What I'm going to have to do here is make a new bitmap for the cheese. So I'm going to make a bitmap that I'm just going to call cheese pick, and I'm actually going to make a list of sprites because I want there to be lots of cheese. Veritable cheese board. So I'll have a private list of sprites which we'll call cheese. Oh, and this is telling me, flagging for me that I haven't actually included the correct usings to be able to use list. I have to have my using system.collections.generic, and now it should recognize what list actually is. And there we go. Okay, now in my game class, I'll have to make my cheese a new list of sprites. And I can make my cheese pick bitmap, a new bitmap. I'm going to call it cheese. I'm going to assign it to my cheese pick that I created earlier. Oh, and that's what it looks like. Now, where to make the cheese and how to make the cheese. I'm actually going to make a function for making my cheese because I want to call it more than once. So I'm just going to call that more cheese. And it's going to take a float x and a float y for coordinates for reasons that will become clear soon. And we're going to need, of course, a sprite for our cheese. I'm going to call it new cheese because we're going to keep adding it to our cheese list. And we're going to use our trusty SplashKit.createSprite function. This time I'm going to use the form that just takes a bitmap because I don't see the point in naming my cheese when I'm just adding numerous pieces. I don't care what they're called. Now I'm going to add this sprite I've just created to our cheese list. So cheese.add, and I put in the sprite item of new cheese, and then I'll just add it to that list. I'm then just going to set its x coordinate using SplashKit.setSpriteX. Nice little function for that, which I just have to give it the name of our sprite and the x coordinate as we took in through the parameter. Do exactly the same thing with the y, with the sprite set y. And I'm just going to show you some things that we can do with the functions here. So I'm also going to use SplashKit.SpriteSetRotation, which sets the rotation. I'm just going to make that, I have to give that the sprite. Otherwise it doesn't know who to rotate. And then I'm giving it x, just because it's just for demonstration purposes. I'm also just going to make a vector so that I can show you how to use some sprite vector cool stuff. So we'll have a vector 2D cheese vec, make that a new vector 2D, and I will just set the x and y components of that vector to the float x and y that we got in through the function parameters. Again, no good reason for that, just demonstrating. So we'll get that y to equal y, and we can actually set a sprite's velocity using that. So SplashKit.Sprite set velocity, we can simply tell it our sprite and that cheese vec that we just created and set the velocity easy as that. I'll add a float speed, which I'll use SplashKit's random function, and we'll times that by 10 to just give us a number between 0 and 10. And we can use another function, which is nice, a SplashKit.SpriteSetSpeed, and then give it again our sprite and the speed that we just created. So as easy as that, we just set a whole heap of things using functions quite easily. Rotation, x, y, velocity, speed. So I just wanted to sort of show you how easy that was to do. Now we need something just to call this more cheese. I'm going to make it when the user presses a space bar, we're going to make a new cheese. So back in handle input, I'm going to, I don't want it if it's a keys down because it'll just keep making too much cheese. So I'm going to use a key typed, SplashKit key typed, and then we want the key code to be space key. So if that's what it is, we want to run the more cheese function. I don't need those brackets because it's just a single line thing. So we'll call more cheese, X and Y. I'm just going to call it CX for cheese X and CY for cheese Y. It's getting upset because I haven't told it that those are things yet, but we'll go back and sort of do that backwards. All right, so back up here. Don't forget their floats. I just want it to be a random value across the width of the window for my X value. So I'm just going to use SplashKit.rand and times it by the sprite window .width to basically give me a random value across the width of this window. I'm going to do a similar thing for my cheese Y value, except this time, of course, I will use height. So it's just going to give me an X and Y randomly placed across the window that we can then be putting into that more cheese function. So when the space bar is hit, it's going to call that more cheese function, do all of those things with the X and Y value that we gave it. We can't forget though, now that we've done all those things with our sprite, that we actually haven't drawn it yet. So we need to go back to our update method. We don't actually have to draw them individually. There's a nice little draw all sprites method that we can use instead. We can even take out our mouse now. And now let's just see what that does. Let's go. There I am. Now if I press the space bar, oh look. So notice it's drawing our mouse and all of our cheese. Also notice though, there's not much velocity or rotation going on there. There's a reason for that. We actually need to call an update method, an actual sprite update method to make those special functions do their thing. So we need to go into our games update method and just put in SplashKit update all sprites. Try that again. And that should work a little bit better. Fingers crossed. See how we go. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's a little bit more exciting. Still not much interaction between objects though. No interaction in fact. Let's fix that. Let's do some things when these sprites collide. So I will see you in the next video where I'll show you how to do that.